At no point in my life did I ever expect to be following Salman Khan or Bill Gates in anything. So it's nice to be here. All right, I'm going to set a stage here. Year's 2006. I'm in Samarra, Iraq, with First Special Forces Group. I got tapped after going to a meeting with one of our networks, one of our sources. We go out in the city, we talk to people, we find out, who's doing what can we do. After getting some information about an individual that was acquiring IEDs and implanting IEDs out in the city, I got tapped, say, Miles, the team sergeant comes up and he says, Miles, you're going to be leading this next operation to go do this. All right, that sounds like fun. It's a big task, but I'll give it a shot. So one thing a lot of people don't realize, any operation, a lot of preparation goes into it. There's a great degree of work that goes into just accomplishing very simple tasks within the military. And more importantly, lives are on the line, so this becomes a very important task. The networks that involve, we have to go out, we have to find individuals who are going to be working with us. We have to build these alliances, these relationships with other foreign nationals in the country, other units, other diplomats within the country, leaders in the city. There's a huge network of people that go into making things happen in any operation overseas. So I was going out and talking to these people, introducing myself, building these relationships, and explaining, here's what we're going to need for this situation. Can we make it happen? Great degree of coordination goes into it, moving all these pieces of the puzzle together, making sure that there's no gaps, there's no confusion, getting all the pieces of the puzzle rolling in the same direction. The logistics to go into it, obviously everyone has to have their vehicles, they have to have their weapons, they have to have all the components that make any sort of an operation work. Got to make sure it's there before we go out into this situation. And lastly, there's delegation. I can't do all this by myself. I have to, all right, this is what you're doing, this is what you're doing, this is what you're doing. Let's move on it. So all these things happen as I'm moving along, and this is a picture of Samarra. You can see it's a decent sized town. I think probably that's about 10 miles across. So a lot of things going on in this city. I was there when the Golden Mosque got blown up in 2006. It woke me up. It was a very large explosion that shook the foundation of the house. So this is a very busy city at this time. So what ended up happening with this mission, there was a total of 4 different organizations moving on this one operation. We had the Iraqi police, we had the Iraqi army, the scouts that we were working with, my special forces detachment, and lastly, just the overall army infrastructure for, in case there's medevac, anybody's injured, we have all the pieces of the puzzle ready to go in case something bad happens. So a lot of moving pieces going on in this. Total of 18 different vehicles, which someone used the term earlier, herding cats. Yeah, it's like herding cats when you get that many people moving in one direction to accomplish a large scale task like this. Over 60 different personnel, and at the end of the day, the mission was successful. We reached our objective, got on target, found the individual we were looking for, identified, found further targets based on the intelligence we gathered, and we went on to do the next mission. And I remember walking into the Samarra police chief, and I walk in, he's probably 45, 50 years old gentleman. He's been doing this a while. I walk in, he's got his staff sitting around him at his big desk, and I'm like, all right, here's the plan. I start giving him the background. Here's the situation. He stops me. Dead. He's like, no, stop. All I want's the plan. All right, that's easy. I can handle the plan. That's easy. So I give him the plan, let him know, and I could see in his face, I could read him. He was worried. He was worried about this situation, and it'll make sense here in a second. But at the end of the mission, I remember looking at him. He had a giant smile on his face. So all these things added up to one happy police chief, which made me happy. And the reason my plan wasn't to come out here and tell war stories or brag about anything what I was doing. Point is, all this was done about 4 months before my 22nd birthday, and part of Army Special Forces is the training that goes into we're vetted and selected to be able to accomplish specific tasks on a large scale, national strategic objectives. So fast forward 5 years, I'm going to college, and it was, there's a break in between. I had a herniated disc, and that was a lot of fun. Worked an entry level job, which is definitely not what I want to do, and probably contributed to the herniated disc. But I did a stint as a recruiter for a while. At a certain point, I realized that if I wanted to move on in the world, I need to start gaining some of these hard skills. There's a conversation I keep hearing of soft skills versus hard skills, and what does that mean? I knew that I had some soft skills that would be valuable in the business community, but these hard skills is what I don't have. I don't have the credentials to back it up. So I knew that I had to get into college. I knew I had to start getting to work on that. So I started going to school, and I was excited. I mean, if you go to any of my teachers from high school and ask them, what did you think about Blake Miles? You wouldn't get a good response from that because, me in high school did not work out too well. But I grew up a lot, and I was excited to learn. And at this point, when I started talking to some of the counselors, I realized that there is a wall. There's a wall that seems to have been built up in between what I knew I was trained for and what the academic world viewed as me capable of doing, or viewed as valuable training that could count towards something. And I started identifying this wall when, I asked my counselor, I've been through some of this training in the military. Is there any way that I can, start getting credits for some of this training? And while there's a translation of credits, many of them just it didn't click. It didn't make sense because there was still a lot of things that I felt, I couldn't understand why there was no translation there. And the recurring theme I kept hearing was, well, we can't do that because we might lose our accreditation, or we might lose our accreditation credentials. So this is the recurring theme I kept hearing, and I understand that. So I just kept driving on, knocking out my school, doing the apps. It started off, I love school. I love the learning process. I love sitting in class and interacting with the teacher because I've been on the other side of it at this point. I know what it's like to teach. I know the difficulty of standing in front of a group of people and trying to explain things. So I had a deep appreciation for that teaching process. Now I'm on the other side of it. I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. Now, fast forward a few semesters, and I'm reaching the point where I'm just like, I just want to get this over with. I just want to get the degree so I can, go off and do great things on my own and find my own path. And going back to that common thread, the common thread that I keep seeing is there's a breakdown in communication in between the civilian side of academia and what the military thinks we're capable of. And I've noticed that it's almost reached a point where we see, at least there's an enemy. We view each other as so different from each other that there's no communication. There's a communication breakdown. And this has been a recurring theme that I've seen talking to a number of former Special Forces guys as they go through the schooling process to say, I can't translate what I've done in the military in the civilian world, especially in school. So I either just don't go to school, find my own way, or I just grind through it and don't enjoy the process. So this led to me, me having idle hands. I said, well, I'm going to find something that I can do to entertain myself. Started writing for softrep.com, and it was a cathartic experience for me because I can get my thoughts on paper and push it out to the world and get responses on it. And that's what led to me being brought here was after sitting in one of my counselor's office and being explained to me that I'd have to take international communications. There was a frustration level that I hit of I spent over a year and a half specifically training for international communications. Is there any way that I can go about doing this without actually having to take the class? Because it's money, it's time. I want to keep moving towards the degree and get out in the world. And it was a rant. It's one of the first articles I wrote that I actually put a lot of emotion into, and at sometimes in there it probably comes through as a little bit angry, but yeah. So probably shouldn't write things when I'm angry, but hey, it got me here and it got me in front of this audience, so I'm definitely happy with how it went. But within that article, I explained there was there was something about being told that the training I received in the military simply didn't add up to what was expected of me in the civilian world. And there's a frustration level there. If you talk to enough veterans, specifically special operations and special forces veterans, we've had millions of dollars, literally, each individual invested into our training, and to be told that that training wasn't as valuable as the classroom experience, there's a frustration level there. And what it turns into is that wall being built up. There's a antagonistic view, especially on I know on our side, and the assumption is that it's on the academic side, and this is something that we're working on with the Green Beret Foundation. This is a foundation that was started back in 2011 by a wounded Special Forces soldier to help Special Forces veterans and their families with transitioning out of the military, especially if they've been wounded. So this is something that we're working on, building a network of relationships on the outside to help. And specifically, before I get into this, specifically explaining what Special Forces is. Most people think of Special Forces, they think of Rambo. This is not Special Forces. That's just Hollywood reality, and there's no real connection between what Hollywood says the military or special forces is. The real special forces that I know and that I experienced with were diplomats, we're teachers, we're instructors. We have an understanding of logistics, infrastructure, and we're capable of building networks in very, very uncertain environments. And from what I understand, this is very important. Most business people say, "Hey, that sounds like a really good skill and really good person to have on the team." Problem is most people don't understand what that connection is. So these are when I think of special forces, these are the sort of things that I think about is going overseas, building relationships with a diverse array of people, and accomplishing bigger national strategic objectives with these relationships. And not only that, but building lasting relationships that carry into the next generation and the next generation, and teaching these skills that wouldn't otherwise be available. Currently, with the Green Beret Foundation, I was just tapped, fortunately, honored to be a part of this organization, but they said, "Miles, here's another task for you. We want you to be the program director of the next Ridgeline." What the next Ridgeline is, we're building a network. Going back to this networking concept, we know this is something that we can't do alone. We're working on building a diverse network of business professionals, academia, subject matter experts, anyone who views a Green Beret and what skills we have to offer and says that's something that we want more of. How do we get in contact with you? This is what we're building right now. So we're building this network of diverse people to start plugging guys as they transition out of special forces into the civilian world so they can continue to do big and better things than they would have in the military, do them here in America and across the world. This is our goal. So an analogy I've been using, I want to build a room with a whole bunch of wall outlets. As guys get out, they say, "Here's what I want to do." "Oh, well, see that power outlet over there? Just go plug right in. This is your source." Because when I got out, and a lot of other guys, if you ask them what was it like when you got out, it's like, "Oh, here's the door lock," and poof, just floating in the ether of space. And it's cold and dark out there because there's no established network specifically for former special forces guys to communicate each other. So this is what we're building. But in addition to that, as I said, we can't do this alone. So we're looking for other leaders, experts who want to get involved with us, help us in this transition. As a part of this, we're building this talent pool of former Special Forces guys who can translate their experiences and convert everything that they've been learning and the millions of dollars of training that we've received into something that the civilian community can find valuable. Because honestly, we want to be civilians too. We don't want to live in this Rambo box of, shooting from the hip with a machine gun. This isn't our goal. When we get out, we want to be civilians. We don't want to be pigeonholed, especially me. I don't want to be pigeonholed into this, Rambo killing machine. I value the relationships that I build, and I work hard to network and find people that have like experiences and goals in their life. This is what we're building. We're building this talent pool. And another analogy, because I like analogies if you haven't noticed yet, we have all these guys with all this training. And they're gems. They're untapped potential, but they're rough, and they just came out of the ground, so they have all these bumps and ridges on them. They have these soft skills. They have these soft skills that they're capable of doing big, important things on a national strategic level, but they're missing those hard skills and those credentials that make them into something that, resume comes across some hiring manager's desk and it just explodes like, wow, this is what we want more of. How do we get more of this? So we have to polish these hidden gems into something that is presentable and acceptable and desirable in the civilian world, and that's what we're working on. And as I said, the last thing, and I think I keep harping on it pretty well. We can't do this alone, and this is something that we feel, me personally especially, I feel that the skill sets that Army Special Forces Green Berets can bring to the table is a very valuable asset for the American society. It's something that all of us, and again, I don't want to speak for the entire Special Forces community. That's probably foolish, but a recurring theme I always notice: we love America. We want this country to be great, and we know that we have the ability to help out in making America great. And this is something that we're constantly pursuing, and we can't do it alone. So why not use the skills that we already have, build these networks, and make America better together? Thank you.